Hey guys, welcome back to another video by me. Today I thought I might do a few movie reviews, just of a few movies that I've seen recently. One I saw today with a friend was Paranormal Activity number 3. I haven't seen the first two, so I guess I can only sort of view this as like a bit of a standalone movie. Yeah, I actually thought it was quite a, I haven't sort of seen the first two, so it's actually this is actually quite a good movie. I don't know, I haven't seen the other two probably better because they're actually the first ones, but well, I guess I think it's actually probably a sequel, prequel. This one, isn't it? But anyway, so essentially it's about a family that's living in a house, and they just sort of, I don't know, they start sort of hearing. Well, the husband starts to hear the sort of strange noises in the house, and something's sort of a bit of a paranormal activity, I guess. Something, got a ghost or something. So he sort of sets up the camera, just sort of cameras around the house to try and capture what's happening, because I think his job's like he's like a wedding photographer. So he's got lots of cameras around the place. But sort of has these cameras set up in their house, and sort of overnight he records, what's happened, and then the next day he sort of watches the footage and sees what's been happening, and he sort of sees the daughter. She sort of gets up in the middle of the night and starts talking to someone that's not there. Like she's got a bit of like an imaginary friend, and so they sort of ask her about it, and she says, "Oh, that's just Toby. I've got to sort of, keep talking to him. Otherwise, something bad's going to happen or something." Yeah, I've sort of written a few notes just up here, so I'll keep doing this all the time. It's only because I'm reading my notes, so I don't sort of forget, anything. Yeah, I just found really cool sort of. I suppose it was a bit of like a plot device, I guess, but I found it really good. This it's sort of cause the guy he sets up a camera that sort of pans between. So I think it's the lounge room and the kitchen. So he sort of gets his wife's those fans that sort of the cold air fans that sort of they're on like a thing that sort of goes like that, so it sort of spreads out the cold air, so it sort of goes scans across. So he sort of breaks that off and puts the camera on top of that as a bit of a makeshift tripod sort of thing, and so he sort of scans slowly between the lounge room and the kitchen. I just found that a really good effect, because the camera sort of be in the lounge room, and you sort of you look at it and sort of take a bit of a mental image of what was in the frame basically, and then it sort of scan off. And then it sort of come back, and you sort of think, well, has that changed? Was that different, or or is it just me that's have you sort of plays with your mind a little bit, and you think, that wasn't there before, was it, or was it, you sort of thing. And you sort of scan off, and then you sort of come on, hurry up, I want to get back to the see if anything's changed, or So I just found that a really good sort of interesting plot device, I guess, to do that. It's specific. I think it's like a prequel to the other movies. I think it's all based on the same sort of family. They sort of grow up, and the kids grow up and sort of have their own kids, and it's sort of, that's when the next movies sort of continue on. I think I might perhaps watch the first first two that have been released already. Just so I can pass. Now I watch the prequel, I can sort of watch. I guess I can sort of watch it in order now, can't I? So, but I just found it really sort of it's like a an old school sort of slow burning sort of horror. How they sort of used to. Like I sort of find these days a lot. Everything's sort of lots of CGI and blood and guts and gore and everything. Lots of action happening all the time, and to try and scare you a bit. Where this is a bit more sort of slow, lots of sort of eerie silences, and then it sort of silence, and then it'd go bang, and something would scare you, sort of thing, and you sort of jump in your seat, sort of thing. So, but yeah, if you haven't never watched any of the the Paranormal Activity movies, I think it's definitely worth a watch. Isn't just like a standalone movie, because I sort of enjoyed it as being a standalone movie. The second movie is called The Hunter, which is sort of set in it's an Australian movie. Set in a place called Tasmania, which for people that don't know is sort of like an island, which is sort of below, Australia. It's like a little Australia. You got below this little island there. It's kind of like a bit like a triangle. William Dafoe's character, he's like it's kind of not really explained, I suppose. His backstory, I suppose, but he's a bit of a hunter, I suppose. So basically, he takes a job from a big corporation that's trying to find a weapon, I guess. So basically, so he sent to Tasmania to try and track down the Tasmanian tiger, which was supposed to extinct, I don't know, 20 or 30 years ago. But apparently, the Tasmanian tiger had some sort of venom in its jaws that sort of helped to paralyse its prey. So they sort of want that venom so they can, I don't know, use it for some sort of weapon, I suppose, some description. I'm not sure. I don't think the Tasmanian tiger had venom in its jaws. I'm not sure if that doesn't sound. That could be true, I suppose, but it doesn't. I think that'd be quite true. So yeah, it's basically sort of gets sent to Tasmania, which is kind of a bit like a sort of country town, sort of backyard sort of thing. And so he's been arranged that he sort of stay with with a family, like a mother and her two children, a boy and a girl. That's where he's supposed to sort of stay as a sort of base, and then he sort of goes up to the mountains, to sort of hunt for the Tasmanian tigers. For what it's supposed to be 10 days or something, then he comes down and sleeps there, and then he gets some more supplies, and then he goes back up. So basically, his cover story is that he's there to research the Tasmanian devils, which I assume is because at the moment there's a bit of a virus going around, like a facial tumour for the Tasmanian devils, which is people are not quite sure what's sort of causing that. So that was sort of the cover story, I think, to sort of him. That's what he was there to researching them, but he's really there actually to kill a Tasmanian tiger to get its venom. And so basically the family had like a husband, but for some reason he sort of disappeared in the bush, and I think it was like 3 months ago, or last summer or something. So no one's not really quite sure what sort of happened to him, and it's a bit sort of circumstances behind that are a bit strange, and people are not quite sure what's happened there exactly. But anyway, when Defoe gets to the house, the two kids are there, but the mother's just sort of sleeping, and you sort of find out later that she's sort of on pills, I guess, to sort of make her sleepy, and I'm not quite sure if she's taken the pills herself, or someone's sort of given it to her to, perhaps, I guess, perhaps help with the nerves, because she's obviously lost her husband, I suppose, so that's there to, I don't know, help her, I guess. So as he says, to get rid of, gets rid of the pills, and so because she thinks she sort of shouldn't be sort of sleeping all the time when she's got sort of two kids, around the house. So essentially, he sort of starts to sort of help around a bit around the house and forms a bit more of a relationship with her, I guess. He sort of fix the generator and fixes a few things around the house, and so it's like the kids have lights and stuff, What was I going to say? Okay, when he sort of gets to the house, he doesn't want to stay there with the family, because he's not much of a sort of a people person, I guess. So he sort of goes into town and asks the local the pub there if he can sort of stay the night, and they go no, because they think he's a bit of a greenie, and they don't really like greenies, because the greenies that because Tasmania has got it's like a foresting industry. There's lots of trees that sort of get cut down and used for wood and stuff. So there's sort of the two opposing forces. You've got the loggers that sort of cut down the trees, and they've obviously got jobs and families to look after and stuff. So they want to work, and you know. Whereas the greenies, they sort of put up, you know, roadblocks and try to stop the logging from happening. So they, you know, there's a sort of bit of you know, loggerheads, I guess, no pun intended, to, you know, sort of between the two sides of the, you know, the greenies and the you know, the loggers. So when he sort of goes to town, they think he's a bit of a greenie, so they say no, you can't, you know, and give him a bit of a hard time, and he ends up getting his vehicle vandalised and getting the lights smashed and stuff like that. I don't know why he just didn't say, oh, I'm not a greenie. I mean, I don't know. I'm sure if he said that, they probably would have backed off a bit, but anyway. What was I going to say? It's got what's his name? Callan Mulvey, which he was in TV show back in Australian TV show, Heartbreak High. He was a bit of like a heartthrob, I suppose, whatever. He's in a lot of Australian TV as well at the moment. And he's just got, honestly, I haven't sort of seen him sort of act since '94, and when you had Heartbreak High, but had like a bit of he's got like a scar on his face, which I just assumed was you know, part of it, his acting role in these in the TV shows. But he's got the same scar in this movie as well. So I think he's actually had I actually did a bit of a look up. He's actually had a car accident in real life. That's why he's got this big sort of scar. A bit of trivia there for you. Yeah, it was a really good movie, I thought. There's a lot of things that sort of weren't quite explained very well, and I wasn't terribly keen on the end. I found the end was a bit rushed, and I don't want to sort of spoil, I suppose. I don't really want to, but I just felt that the end was a bit rushed, and there's sort of 2 or 3 sort of main events that sort of happened, you know, in the last 2 minutes or so. That I just don't think they'd really happen. I can't quite understand what Willem Dafoe, you know, does something at the end, and I just don't think what he did was really, it didn't sort of seem much, I don't know, I don't know what I'm trying to say. It wasn't much of a, what he did was not really going to make much effect in the outcome of what, you know, what's going to happen in the end. So anyway, I'm rambling a bit there. But yeah, other than that, I thought that was a really, apart from the, you know, the few plot holes and things that weren't explained very well and stuff, but it was a really good. It was actually a good Australian movie, I think, because I shouldn't, you know, I'm Australian, but I shouldn't probably say that I don't really like Australian movies much, which is a bit strange, I suppose to say, but I just find some of them are really sort of boring. They're really sort of not. Sometimes they have ones in movies that just don't have any. There's no sort of very little dialogue and lots of sort of long, boring silences. I don't like it much. But this is actually quite a good. This had a lot of you know not much dialogue in some scenes and lots of drawn out silences and stuff. But it was actually you were still engrossed in what was happening. That didn't really notice that it was perhaps, you know, silences. Anyway, I'm ranting a little bit. So yeah, that was a good movie. I think you should check it out, The Hunter. And yeah, okay, that's it, I think. I'll see you next time. Bye.